It was the clink of silverware that broke the silence. Just me and the sound of a cooling dinner plate. Pork tenderloin, roasted carrots, and the same red wine she said paired decently with her bad moods. I sat there at the edge of the dining room table, staring at her untouched plate across from mine, while the steam from the food thinned into nothing. 7:43 p.m. The phone buzzed. "I'm not your possession. I'll be late. Don't text." "No, sorry." Running behind. No explanation. Not even a damn emoji to soften the jab. Just that cold-blooded statement. It was like getting slapped and then asked to thank her for the contact. For a moment, I just blinked at it, thinking maybe she fat-fingered someone else. But no. That tone? That was her exact tone. I could practically hear it. Dismissive, sharp, smug. The kind of voice that never expected a reply. Just obedience. So I stood up. No drama. No shouting. Just scraped my chair back, walked into the study, unlocked the small safe behind the framed fishing license, and pulled out the envelope marked "Execute" in neat black Sharpie. I'd sealed it 6 months ago. Sealing wax even, like some medieval war plan. I took a deep breath, typed out my reply slowly, word by word. "I'm not your husband anymore. Don't come back." Then I powered off the phone. Just like that. Thumb on the screen, no trembling, no second guessing. Done. And before I go any further, hey, if this story resonates even a little, consider subscribing. Over 97% of people listening right now aren't subscribed, and honestly, it means a hell of a lot to the folks telling stories like this. Back to it. The lights stayed on for another hour, but not a single sound echoed through the house. No TV. No Spotify humming from her home office. No high heels clacking in the hallway demanding I grab the Amazon box from the porch. Just silence and my breathing. Dinner sat untouched. Hers. Mine was already in the trash. I poured the wine back into the bottle and returned it to the fridge like a coroner bagging evidence. Then I got to work. You see, that text? It wasn't the beginning. It was the final straw that got cataloged, numbered, and filed in my mental archive of 1,000 small humiliations. It came after years of being sidelined by passive-aggressive digs wrapped in yoga mat philosophy. After holidays spent watching her scroll through Instagram, while my parents asked about her next big project. After 10 Christmases where she gave me socks and framed quotes while I gifted her ski trips, massage chairs, and diamond earrings she forgot to wear. It came after she made me apologize for flinching when she slammed the dishwasher. After she called my hobbies cute, then rolled her eyes when I tried to share anything about them. After she told me once, without irony, that she respected me too much to lie. Right after I found the hotel receipt for a weekend I never attended. But I stayed. Like an idiot. Or maybe not an idiot. Maybe just someone waiting. Watching. Collecting. I knew this day would come. I just didn't know it would arrive so perfectly. I didn't yell. Didn't smash plates. Didn't even touch the whiskey. I sat back down in the leather chair I used to call mine, pulled a black notebook from the drawer, and checked the final box on a long silent list. Trigger received. Execute plan. Page 1 of that notebook had 3 underlined words. Disappear. Dismantle. Detach. This wasn't petty. This wasn't rage. This was a farewell she would never get to rewrite. And the best part? She thought she was in control. She always did. But she never noticed I'd been quietly moving money, scanning documents, making trips to the county clerk's office, changing my mailing address, building something invisible. She was too busy being the star of her own melodrama to realize someone else was directing the final scene. Tonight, I didn't just walk away from the table. I walked away from her script. And the next time she picked up her phone to send another smug directive, she'd find out the hard way. The audience had left the theater. Rebecca always assumed I was slow. Slow to argue. Slow to interrupt. Slow to react. She mistook that for dullness. What she didn't understand, what she never bothered to understand, is that I don't raise my voice when I'm done. I sharpen knives. It started on a Wednesday a year before the text. I was in the garage, changing the oil on her Lexus. Again, when I found a receipt tucked under the passenger seat. Not a hotel. Not lingerie. Just a dinner for 2 at a downtown spot we'd never been to together. Wine pairings. 2 desserts. A $14 valet tip in cash. That receipt didn't scream. It whispered. And I started listening. I scanned it. Saved it in a folder on a USB drive. Bought 2 more just like it. One went into my office drawer under invoices. Another? Into the new fireproof safe I installed in the attic, behind the HVAC access panel she'd never touched in 20 years. I started gathering. Not dirt proof. Her schedule. Gas mileage inconsistencies. Duplicate perfume purchases. One bottle stayed in our bedroom. The other? I found it in the trunk next to a folded hoodie that didn't fit either of us. Excel. Men's. I didn't confront her. I took notes. I stopped reacting altogether. Every Thursday, she thought I was going to my poker night. I was actually driving to a quiet strip mall 2 towns over, where my attorney's office was sandwiched between a dental clinic and a failed yogurt place. Her name was Monica Tran, and she didn't waste time asking if I still loved my wife. She asked if I wanted an exit or an explosion. I said, both. In that order. We got to work. Rebecca never questioned the second checking account I opened, because I told her it was for online freelance invoices. She never asked why I added 2-step verification to all our logins. She never asked why I insisted on doing the taxes myself this year. She was too busy texting someone named D, while pretending to meal prep kale salads we'd never eat. I moved our joint savings, legally, cleanly, into an LLC account under a name she'd approved when we filed our first taxes. Remember that marketing company idea she said we should register for tax write-offs? Yeah. I kept it alive. And now it had its own routing number. I visited the county office and pulled every deed, title, and account document that had her name on it. One by one, I adjusted what could be adjusted, separated what could be separated. The rest I marked for detonation. I also wrote letters. One to her mother, one to mine, one to our accountant, and one to the HOA president who hated her guts but owed me a favor after I fixed his leaking kitchen last year. All the letters were sealed, time-stamped, and stored in that safe deposit box I opened using my mother's maiden name. A detail Rebecca couldn't remember even if you held her yoga mat hostage. I changed my health insurance to individual coverage. I rerouted my prescriptions. I swapped my emergency contact at work from her to my brother, who didn't like her much but liked my cooking. She didn't notice a thing, because she wasn't looking at me. She was looking through me. Every time I packed a box under the pretense of decluttering, she praised me for finally taking initiative. Every time I asked her to double-check a form, she clicked sign without reading. She helped me disappear. And the last piece? A new post office box in a city we'd never lived in. All correspondence, rerouted. All mail digitized. I had an address, a forwarding service, a burner laptop, and a new passport expedited under my full name, but with Henry A. instead of Henry Allen. She didn't even know my middle name, or maybe she forgot. Either way, it no longer mattered, because by the time she read my final text, thinking it was some bluff, some bruised ego tantrum, the man she used to own had already slipped through the walls of her life like smoke. She didn't lose me that night. She'd already lost me 12 months before. That night, she just noticed. She stepped out of the bar with that slow, smug stride she'd perfected over the years. Heels clacking, coat slung over one shoulder, tipsy confidence radiating off her like cheap perfume. Her hand was already fishing through her purse for her phone before the door even shut behind her. It wasn't guilt. It was habit. She always checked in just enough to avoid suspicion, but never enough to be accountable. 8:21 p.m. Screen lit up. One new message. 6 words. I'm not your husband anymore. Don't come back. Her lip curled into a laugh. She actually laughed, rolled her eyes, turned the screen toward her friend Carla, her so-called work friend, who dressed like her ex-husband's alimony had no ceiling, and said, Henry's doing his drama thing again. Carla grinned. Ah. Did the big baby make dinner and want applause? Rebecca smirked. He's sulking because I told him not to text. Watch this. She hit call. 1 ring. No answer. Weird. Usually, even when he was pissed, he'd answer. Or text some guilt-trip nonsense like, we need to talk. She hit call again. Twice. Then 3 more times, rapid fire. Then 1 long hold. Nothing. Her face tightened. Carla was already halfway into a rideshare, waving goodbye, not noticing that Rebecca had stopped laughing. Another call. Still nothing. By the 10th call, she wasn't annoyed. She was offended. How dare he ignore me? She muttered, pacing now, parked under the yellowish bar light near the alley. Her thumb tapped and swiped like a drug addict trying to unlock the dealer's number. She typed out a message. Seriously. Then deleted it. Then again. You're being ridiculous. Backspace. Call 14. 15. 16. Voicemail each time. By call 22. She was back in her car, engine humming, eyes flicking from her phone to the road. She called as she drove, one hand on the wheel, one on her fury. Call 28. Call 33. The last one she yelled into the silence. Henry, if this is some kind of joke. Call 37. Pick up the phone. This isn't funny. Call 41. I'm coming home. You better be there. Call 45. Henry, if you changed the locks, I swear to God. Call 47. Voicemail. Again. It was past 11 when she pulled into the driveway. Her headlights swept over the front of the house like she was seeing it for the first time. Off. Dark. Still. She tried the garage door button. Nothing. She parked, walked up to the front door, heels now stumbling against the pavement, and reached for her key. Didn't fit. She flipped it. Tried again. Didn't fit. She knocked once, twice. Harder. Nothing. She banged. Nothing. Her hand went to her phone again, ready to call. But the moment it lit up, she saw it. 47 missed calls. No service. No messages returned. No battery left. She turned around and tried to peek through the side windows. The living room was empty. No glow from the TV. No slippers. No dog bed. He must have taken Max. She walked around back. The gate was locked with a new chain. The spare key under the garden rock? Gone. She rattled the back door handle, her breath fogging in the cold. Still no light. Still no answer. Then she stopped. Noticed it. The garage. The bay was open just enough to show. Nothing. No car. No boxes. No ladder hanging on the sidewall. Bare. Like it had been scrubbed. Like someone had uninstalled her life. Only now did the confidence begin to drain from her face. It wasn't a tantrum. It wasn't a bluff. It was a departure. That's when she sat down on the porch, her porch, and felt the panic claw its way up her spine. She finally called someone else. Her sister, maybe, or that old friend who used to say Henry was too mild. But even they didn't answer. It hit her in waves. Like realizing the house you lived in is no longer yours. Like coming home after a trip and finding someone else's name on the mailbox. She wasn't locked out of the house. She was locked out of the script. And the man who never yelled had just performed the loudest act of his life. Without saying a single word. She finally got inside around 2 a.m. The locksmith she guilt-tripped into an emergency visit was half asleep and smelled like gasoline. But he did the job. Changed the locks. She paid him in cash and kept glancing over her shoulder the whole time. Like Henry might lunge from the bushes with a baseball bat and a manifesto. He didn't. The house was exactly as she left it. For a second, the lights flickered on in the foyer. The same scent of cinnamon wax melts she always used, mostly to cover up how much she hated actual cooking. Everything looked still ordinary. Like Henry had just stepped out to pick up oat milk or one of those stupid beard trimmers he obsessed over. But then she walked into the living room. The recliner, his recliner, was gone. Just gone. Like it never existed. The indentation in the carpet had already started to rise, as if the house itself wanted to erase the memory of his body. She opened the coat closet. Empty hangers. Walked into the hallway. The gallery of their life stared back at her. Photos from a Cancun trip they barely spoke during. Their anniversary dinner at that overpriced place where she spent half the night texting under the table. His framed award from work. A little wooden plaque with a brass plate missing. And the wedding photo. Gone. Just a hook where it used to be. Not broken. Not torn. Just removed. She stood there a long time. Still convinced it was a bluff. Still whispering, he's being dramatic. Like it was a spell that would make him reappear from the shadows, arms folded, waiting for her to beg. The kitchen was next. She went straight to the drawer where they kept savings envelopes, her emergency Botox fund, his car repair stash, the rainy day cash they both ignored until they needed to pretend they were budgeting. Gone. Not a single bill left. She opened the fridge. Nothing but her vegan yogurt, expired hummus, and a half-empty bottle of Sauvignon Blanc. No leftovers. No meal prep containers. No signs he'd eaten here in days. She opened the laptop on the kitchen counter. It booted to a factory reset screen. No passwords. No bookmarks. Even the little sticky note with their Wi-Fi password torn off, missing. She stumbled backward and leaned against the counter. And that's when she saw it. A single folded note. Crisp. Centered. Placed on the counter like a calling card. She picked it up, already shaking. The handwriting was his. Everything you mistook for weakness was patience. That's it. No love, Henry. No timestamp. No argument. Just a diagnosis. And it was true. She'd mocked his silences, rolled her eyes at his calm, said things like, "You always shut down when things get hard," never noticing that shutting down was his version of opening a file, logging data, and waiting for the day he'd hit execute. She rushed upstairs. The closet, his side bare, not even a hanger left. Her dresses still there, her shoes all lined up. His passport drawer, empty. The toiletries in the bathroom, just hers. Even his razor charger was gone from the wall. She sat on the edge of the bed and pressed her palms into her eyes, thinking, when did this start? How long had he been planning? She checked her phone. No new messages. She opened Facebook. His profile was deactivated. Instagram, gone. Their joint Spotify account? She was the only user now. She played one of his old playlists, Sunday Blues, but all the songs were grayed out. Files not found. Her hand hovered over her phone again. She thought about calling her sister, but they hadn't really spoken since that dinner where Rebecca accidentally spilled wine on her niece's birthday dress. She thought about calling Carla, but Carla was probably still drunk at the bar, maybe even texting Dee. She had nobody to tell, nobody who would take her side without knowing the full context, which she couldn't give. Because the full context was this. She'd mocked a man into vanishing, not just from the house, from her reality. The scary part wasn't that he was gone. It was that she didn't know how long he'd been preparing to be gone. And if someone you live with for 22 years can silently unbuild your life without leaving a single trace behind, except a note, then maybe he wasn't the one who ever belonged here. Maybe she was the intruder all along. And now she was the only ghost left. Rebecca wasn't used to being ignored. Dismissed? Maybe. Avoided? Occasionally. But outright ignored, cut off like a telemarketer mid-sentence? That was a new kind of humiliation. One she hadn't built defenses for. By morning, her heels were still by the front door. One tilted sideways, like it had tried to run. Her makeup was smeared into a sleep-deprived map of regret. She sat cross-legged on the floor with her phone in her lap, thumb hovering, watching the little green beside Henry's sister's name on Messenger flicker, then vanish. She called. Straight to voicemail. She tried again. Same thing. Her message tone was forced calm. Hey Paula. Just trying to reach you. Something's going on with Henry and, well, it's probably just a misunderstanding. Call me? She hung up, waited. Nothing. 10 minutes later, she texted one of Henry's old coworkers, Brad. The guy who used to corner the dip at every party and drone on about interest rates like it was foreplay. Her message. Hey Brad. Have you heard from Henry? He's not answering. And I'm just trying to make sure he's okay. The response came 6 hours later. I haven't seen him in months. Thought you two split already. Split? Already? She stared at the words like they were written in Braille and she'd just gone blind. Next attempt. Art. Henry's fishing buddy. Guy with a gut like a beer keg and a handshake like a vice. He was the only person Henry ever confided in after 2 bourbons. She texted him something simple. Is Henry with you? The reply came 2 minutes later. He warned you. 3 words. No punctuation. No warmth. She read it again. He warned you. Her stomach twisted. Her mouth went dry. What had Henry said? She tried calling Art. It rang once. Then silence. Blocked. That was the moment the world stopped being familiar. This wasn't a man sulking. This was a network failure. He'd gone dark not just to her, but to everyone she thought she could loop in. Like someone had pulled a blackout curtain over his entire life. She got dressed in the same clothes from the night before, wrapped herself in a coat still carrying the perfume from the bar, and drove to his office. The receptionist, a woman with a stiff blonde bob and the patience of a DMV clerk, barely looked up. Henry doesn't work here anymore, she said. Rebecca blinked. Excuse me? He resigned. 3 months ago. No, he didn't. He was just here last week, I thought. The woman pulled up something on her monitor. Voluntary resignation, dated July 3rd. Cleared out his desk the next day. Exit paperwork filed. Benefits terminated. Rebecca leaned on the desk, whispering now. Where did he go? I'm sorry. I can't share that. I'm his wife. The receptionist finally met her eyes. There was something in her face. Pity maybe, or exhaustion. She said gently. You were his wife. She left the office shaking. 3 months? 3 months ago, they'd still been sleeping in the same bed, well, opposite sides of it. Still sharing dinners in silence. Still going to family birthdays with pasted-on smiles. Still pretending. So that's what he'd been doing, while she was trying to maintain the image. While she was busy curating her fake life for her followers. Taking pictures of brunch and flowers and pretending to love the man who always made sure she had gas in the car. He'd been exiting. Strategically. Quietly. Legally. She got into her car, sat in the parking garage, and finally said it out loud. He's gone. Not in the dramatic way people throw that phrase around. Not in the we broke up way. But gone. Like a patient with a terminal diagnosis who decided not to wait for the hospital bed. He had peeled himself out of her orbit with surgical precision. And the scariest part? She couldn't find anyone who still saw her as part of his story. Every door she knocked on, already closed. Every voice she called, already silent. He didn't just leave her behind. He made sure she wouldn't be able to follow. 3 days passed. 3 days of calling old friends who suddenly had to go. Of rereading Henry's text like it might change. Of watching the door as if he'd walk back in with that familiar exhausted face and say, "You win, I'll stay." But on the 4th morning, a knock broke the silence. Not the polite kind. The kind that comes with formality. Legal knock. She opened the door to a man in a windbreaker holding a plain white envelope. No emotion. No small talk. "Rebecca Morgan?" She nodded. "You've been served." She took the envelope, stunned into politeness. "What is this?" "Everything you've been avoiding," he said, then turned and walked away. Inside the envelope, the first thing she saw was her name in all caps. Rebecca Morgan, listed as respondent. Not wife, not spouse, not even Mrs., just respondent. That word stuck in her teeth like gristle. Then she flipped through the contents, hand trembling like it was allergic to truth. Divorce petition. Filed. Date of separation. 3 days ago. Date of intent to separate? 6 months ago. Attached was a notarized affidavit signed by Henry. 3 pages of calm, clinical language documenting consistent emotional neglect, frequent belittling statements, and a prolonged pattern of unilateral financial decisions and relational dismissal. The words hit like bullets, not because they were loud, but because they were precise. Nothing dramatized, just facts, dates, receipts, even screenshots of her messages. One stood out. Her infamous text, "I'm not your possession. I'll be late, don't text." Highlighted. Timestamped. Underneath, the attorney had included a clause from their state's family code regarding constructive abandonment, citing her text as proof. In layman's terms, her own words had just voided her leverage. There was more. Asset division documents. Detailed breakdowns. Nothing illegal, nothing shady, just airtight. Every account she assumed was joint, already separated. Every asset with her name on it, matched against liabilities she hadn't considered. And then the final page. List of witnesses. She scanned the names. One caught her breath. Monica Tran Iescu. She didn't recognize it at first. But then she remembered. Months ago, she saw a missed call on Henry's phone labeled Monica T. And she joked, "Got a girlfriend?" He'd smiled and said, "Sort of." She laughed. He didn't. Now she got the joke. He did have a girlfriend. Just not the kind she expected. Monica wasn't romantic. She was legal. She was the hand guiding the scalpel while Rebecca pranced around thinking she still held the pen. There was a section she couldn't ignore. Protective financial actions initiated in response to emotional coercion and manipulative behaviors. It even listed past examples, verbatim phrases she recognized because she'd said them. "Maybe if you worked less, you'd understand real stress. You're lucky I put up with you. You're too sensitive." All logged, documented, sworn under oath. She dropped the packet on the floor and backed away from it like it might explode. Panic bloomed in her chest like ink in water. Every breath felt like glass. The room felt wrong. Too bright, too quiet, too exposed. She called her own lawyer. Some overpriced smiler she'd used during a property dispute with a neighbor last year. Got his assistant instead. "Rebecca Morgan? Hold, please." 2 minutes later, "He's unavailable. I need to speak to someone now," she snapped. "I understand, ma'am, but your file hasn't been updated in over a year. If this is regarding the divorce, how do you know about that?" There was a pause. "Henry Morgan's counsel contacted our office 3 days ago. For document coordination. You're listed as opposing party. She dropped the phone. Her hands wouldn't stop shaking. He hadn't just left. He'd built a whole new infrastructure. Legal, financial, and personal. Underneath her feet, and she never once looked down. And worst of all, she helped him do it. With every careless insult. Every night out without explanation. Every eye roll. Every time she told him to man up or get over it. She paved the road he used to walk away. And now, there was no sign of return. Just a deadline to respond. 21 days. Tick, tick, tick. By the next morning, Rebecca had shifted from panic to fury. That self-righteous, fire-breathing kind. The kind that convinces a person they're the victim of a system they helped design. She threw on her old cashmere coat. One Henry bought during a trip she barely remembered, and stormed out the door like she was heading to battle. Destination. First Southern Mutual. The same branch they opened their joint accounts at 15 years ago. The one with the fake marble floors and complimentary mints no one ever ate. Henry used to joke that the chairs in the waiting area were designed to subtly punish your back into agreeing to overdraft protection. Rebecca didn't wait in line. She went straight to the teller. I need to freeze my accounts. Joint savings and checking. She snapped, slapping her ID onto the counter like it was a badge. The teller, a young woman with polite eyes and a name tag that read Lauren, blinked twice, then pulled up the file. A long pause. Tap, tap, scroll. Rebecca leaned in. Well, Lauren cleared her throat. It looks like those accounts are no longer active. The joint status was dissolved. Rebecca tilted her head. What? They were formally separated. 3 months ago. That's impossible. Lauren glanced around, lowering her voice. It was done through counsel. His attorney filed the authorization. And you signed the approval. Rebecca's heart thudded. No, I didn't. I never signed anything. Lauren turned the screen slightly, showing the record. A digital signature. See? Right here. Email verification. 2-factor code sent to your phone. Then confirmation. July 17th. Rebecca's breath caught. She remembered July 17th. That was the night she was at the beach house with her friend Carla. Half a bottle of Prosecco in. She got some notification from the bank and tapped yes, just to stop the alert from interrupting her playlist. Henry's probably moving money around again, she'd said. She signed it, blind, without reading. Her phone buzzed again that night. Another code. She typed it in between laughs. Authorization confirmed. She signed her own financial exile and toasted it with sparkling rose. Lauren spoke again. It's all final, ma'am. Rebecca stared at her. Can't you just unfreeze it? Or reinstate me? I'm his wife. Lauren gave her a practiced smile that wasn't unkind. Just immovable. You were on the account. But legally, your access was revoked. The funds were redistributed into new, single-party accounts and she glanced back at the screen, set a notification block on third-party inquiries. That includes you. Rebecca opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Her tongue hit the back of her teeth and just stayed there. Lauren gestured awkwardly to the small seating area. If you'd like to speak with one of our financial officers. No, Rebecca whispered. She turned on her heel and walked out. Fast. Outside, she leaned against the brick wall of the building, one hand gripping her coat like it might keep her from falling apart. Cars drove by. People walked in and out. Someone brushed past her and said, "Excuse me." But she didn't move. All she could see was that date on the screen. July 17th. The same night she posted that picture of herself laughing under a neon sign that read "Live Free." The same night she'd made fun of Henry's obsession with digital security while she airdropped 20 photos to a stranger by accident. He'd waited for that moment. Waited for the exact point when her ego would make her blind enough to sign her own financial death warrant. He didn't steal anything. Didn't forge a signature. Didn't lie. He just knew her. And now she was locked out of the bank accounts she thought defined her power. The cushion she'd assumed would always be there. The fallback plan for whatever mess she made. Gone. Dismantled with quiet precision and a few lines of legal code. She stood there another 5 minutes before walking to her car. Not crying. Not raging. Just hollow. Like a pawn knocked off the board mid-game. Not even worthy of a dramatic fall. Inside, the glove box still held a folder of spa receipts and Henry's old auto insurance documents. She opened it, flipped through them, and finally understood. She never really shared anything. Not money, not space, not love. She just borrowed it all until the lender got smart. Monday morning arrived like a hangover she hadn't earned. Rebecca dressed carefully, deliberately. Pencil skirt, silk blouse, minimalist jewelry, her armor. She painted on the version of herself that still had control, that still mattered. The version that could walk through the office without everyone whispering, "Did you hear?" behind their keyboards. She rehearsed it in her head the whole drive over. Smile, wave, coffee, emails, ignore everything that isn't scheduled. Crisis compartmentalization. She'd done it before. After that HR warning, after the Christmas party misunderstanding, after the marketing intern quit without notice and copied half the board. She was no stranger to walking into rooms like nothing was burning behind her. But this was different. The front desk girl, usually chirpy, barely looked up. Just a tight nod. The intern, Jess or maybe Jenna, avoided eye contact entirely. Rebecca smiled anyway, walked straight to her office, heels hitting the floor like punctuation. 2 minutes later, a knock. Her boss, David. He stepped in, shut the door behind him like he was trying to muffle something ugly. "You okay?" he asked. She blinked. "Yes, just personal stuff." He nodded slowly, like he didn't buy it but wasn't about to fight. "Well, if you need time off, we can figure it out." "I don't. I'm fine, right?" He hesitated, rubbing the back of his neck. "You might want to avoid the kitchen." She tilted her head. "Why?" But he was already walking away. Heart thudding. She got up and crossed the hallway. When she reached the kitchen, she knew. People were pretending not to notice her. That kind of silence isn't natural. It's staged, like a play where everyone forgot their lines. The office bulletin board, usually pinned with birthday notices, passive-aggressive fridge warnings, and motivational garbage, had a new post. Printed screenshot from a text message. "I'm not your possession. I'll be late, don't text." Her stomach dropped. Right below it, scrawled in blue Sharpie, "Don't come back." She stared at it. Someone laughed in the hallway. Not at her. Not directly, but loud enough to hurt. She tore it down, crumpled it, tossed it in the trash under the sink. But it was too late. The damage wasn't in the paper. It was in the eyes of everyone who saw it and had already formed their opinions. Someone else walked in as she was tossing the ball of paper. Didn't say a word. Just poured their coffee and left. The bulletin board was supposed to be hers. Not officially, but everyone knew she curated it. Picked the fonts. Made sure it looked elevated. She once bragged to HR that the board was part of the office's internal culture brand. Now it branded her. She marched back to her office and slammed the door. Not too loud. Just enough to mark her territory. She sat. Checked her inbox. No messages from David. No replies to the weekly status report she sent out earlier that morning. Then she noticed something even worse. The team group chat, where people usually posted memes, lunch orders, bad puns, had a new message. Not directed at her, but about accountability in leadership. About tone from the top. From Jenna. Or Jess. Whatever her name was. She'd been undermined by someone she once called sweet but replaceable. Suddenly her desk felt smaller. Her title felt flimsier. She realized something brutal. She had no capital left. Not at work. Not at home. Not anywhere. Because you can't build loyalty on intimidation and clever quips. You can't buy respect with office gossip and quarterly bonuses. And you sure as hell can't stop people from watching when the person who thought she was untouchable gets dragged into the dirt. She tried to breathe. Tried to rationalize. They don't know the whole story. But the problem was they didn't care. Because all they saw was the mask finally cracking. And the woman behind it didn't look like someone they feared anymore. She looked alone. She didn't even know where to send it at first. The house was gone. The office gone. The joint P.O. box they used for tax season? Closed. His sister wouldn't speak. His coworkers were ghosts. And whatever Henry was doing now, wherever he was, he'd scrubbed his trail clean like it was forensic art. But she had one address left. The law firm. So she sat down at the kitchen table. Same spot where Henry used to sit and slice apples while she read the news out loud and corrected his pronunciation of hors d'oeuvres. She picked up a pen, blue ink, slightly smudged, and began to write. No rehearsed speech. No long explanation. Just 8 words. Please talk to me. Just once. Please. She folded it carefully. Slid it into a cream envelope. No return address. Just his name and care of his attorney. She mailed it. Then waited. A week passed. Nothing. Another week passed. She almost forgot about it. Work had gone quieter. More meetings without her. Her mailbox was full of junk mail, subscription renewals, and a couple of sympathy cards from people who didn't know what they were sympathizing with. Then one day it was raining. Naturally, the doorbell rang. She opened it expecting a delivery driver with someone else's package. Instead, it was a courier envelope. Waterproof. Labeled with her name. Written in the exact handwriting she'd always found too tidy, too measured. The kind that wrote grocery lists like formal documents. She closed the door. Walked back inside. Set it on the kitchen table. Stared at it. She tore it open. No letter. No note. Just a USB stick. Black, unbranded, like a piece of evidence in a trial. She plugged it into her laptop. One folder. Named in bold. Cold letters. Why you're alone. She hesitated. Then opened it. Inside were subfolders. Each one dated. Chronologically arranged. Neat, brutal order. She clicked on one labeled anniversaries. There were scanned dinner reservations and used. Grocery receipts for meals she never showed up to. A photo of him holding a gift in the mirror. Smiling alone. Timestamped 8:17 p.m. on their 15th anniversary. She was in Tulum that week. A trip she said was essential for personal healing. Another folder, vacations. Dozens of travel itineraries. Her name, her solo flights. Spa packages. One receipt for a couple's massage where she changed the booking to single guest at the last minute. She clicked messages. Screenshots. Hundreds. Her texts lined up in rows like evidence bags. You're too needy. Grow up. Not everything is about you. I deserve better. Don't be so dramatic. Each one timestamped. Contextualized. Responded to by silence or by him saying, okay. She opened one video file. Henry. At the dinner table. 2 candles lit. Steak plated. Her chair empty. He smiles, raises a glass to no one. Happy anniversary, he says. Hope Tulum's worth it. She shut the lid of the laptop. Pushed back from the table. Then pulled the laptop open again. Because the last folder was named simply, End. Inside one file. A .txt document. One line. This isn't punishment. This is record keeping. She sat in that chair for a long time. No crying. No yelling. Just staring. Because that's the thing about arrogance. It blinds you not just to what you're doing but to how long it's been noticed. She thought she could erase history by pretending it was overreaction. But Henry hadn't overreacted. He'd watched. And he'd documented. Not to get revenge but to understand. And in doing so, he built the one thing she never expected. A story that didn't need her to continue. Because now, when she told people her version of what happened, there was always the chance that someone else had already seen the file. Why you're alone. The courtroom was cold. Not freezing but sterile. Neutral. Like a hotel lobby where no one wants to make eye contact. Rebecca sat at the left table, behind her attorney, wearing the same navy dress she wore to her father's funeral. It didn't feel like armor. It felt like camouflage. Across from her sat Henry. Calm. Crisp gray suit. No rings. No expression. Just a man who had stopped needing to explain himself. She avoided his gaze for the first 20 minutes. Focused instead on her lawyer's cadence. The paper shuffle. The dry way the court clerk read dates like they were weather reports. But eventually, inevitably, her eyes drifted. And what she saw unnerved her more than any angry outburst ever could. He wasn't angry. He was done. The judge, an older woman with eyes like drill bits, adjusted her glasses and looked at Rebecca's side. You're contesting the division on the grounds that the petitioner concealed assets. Is that correct? Rebecca's lawyer stood. Yes, Your Honor. We believe there was intentional obfuscation regarding the distribution of funds into secondary accounts under LLC structures. Henry's attorney raised her hand slightly. All previously disclosed during pretrial discovery. All signed and acknowledged by the respondent. The judge nodded. Yes, I see that. And the clause indicating abandonment, tied to the respondent's own written message. She looked over the top of her glasses. Mr. Morgan, do you have anything you wish to say? Henry stood slowly. Not dramatically. No rustle of paper. No speech prepared. Just presence. His voice, when it came, was clear. Not loud. Not trembling. Steady like rainfall. For 22 years, he began. I gave her everything I had. Time. Patience. Grace. When she stopped saying thank you, I stayed. When she started rolling her eyes at everything I loved, I stayed. He paused. She used to say I shut down during conflict, that I didn't fight back. But the truth is I was just keeping the peace. Not because I was afraid of her, but because I didn't want to become what she already believed I was. He shifted his weight slightly, looked down at his hands, then back up at the judge. And the day she texted me like I was beneath her was the day I stopped being hers. No yelling, no revenge, just done. He nodded once, then sat. Silence. Heavy. Rebecca's throat closed. She felt her lawyer shift beside her, but no words came. There was nothing to say. The judge shuffled her notes. Well, she said quietly, the evidence is clear. Division of assets stands as filed. Petition granted. Dissolution finalized. Bang of the gavel. A sound she didn't expect to feel like a funeral bell. She didn't look at Henry as he stood. Didn't follow his eyes or chase him down with one last whispered plea. She just sat, frozen, like her chair was sinking into the floor, swallowing her inch by inch. Henry walked out with a quiet rhythm. Not triumphant, not smug, just free. Outside, the sky was clear. A soft wind blew through the courthouse parking lot. He walked to a modest sedan, opened the door, and tossed a manila envelope onto the passenger seat. Documents, title transfers, closure in printed form. Then he pulled out a new phone. No missed calls, no unread texts, no baggage. He slid the key into the ignition and drove away. Not fast, just forward. Rebecca eventually stood, moved in slow motion out of the courtroom, past the lobby, through the glass doors into the real world where everything still looked the same but didn't feel it. She didn't cry, not because she was strong, because even that felt like too much effort now. The text she'd once sent so flippantly echoed in her brain like a mocking ringtone. I'm not your possession. I'll be late, don't text. He never did. He just answered with a new life. One where she wasn't invited. One she helped build without ever noticing. And that life was already in motion, without her.